Join today to take your SAT prep to the next level. Members get access to over 1,000 solution videos answering the questions in College Board's question bank and concept-based practice questions with videos to solidify your SAT skills. Thanks for watching. Grateful.
Now starting on question number 1, here we have a nice straight equation where we're solving for x, and we should ask ourselves what's happening to x, and the answer is being added with 12. So therefore we should subtract 12, and we'll get k equals 324, and that's answer choice B. Now going to question number 2, here we're being asked, in which year was the estimated number of chipmunks the greatest? And the estimated number of chipmunks, well, that's just the y-axis. So where are we seeing the greatest y value? And that's going to be right here. That's the highest number, and it happens in 1994. So the answer here is B. Now going to question number 3, here we're being asked for the y-intercept, and in general, the x-intercept's where y is 0, the y-intercept is where x is 0. So here, we need to know where is x equal to 0. And when x is equal to 0, it puts you on this axis. So all the points on this green line, they all have x values of 0. And where does the curve hit that line? Right here, at 0, 2, which is answer choice B here. Now going to question number 4, we can approach this question from the standpoint of unit conversions. So we have 51 meters. Any number is really itself over 1. And now we can use that rate that we're being given there as a conversion. We can say 1 meter is equal to 100 centimeters. Now, by the way, the 51 meters, we can multiply that by 100 centimeters over 1 meter, or by 1 meter over 100 centimeters. Either way, it's equal to the number 1. And when you multiply by 1, nothing happens. But we purposely arranged it so that if we have meters on the top, we can counterbalance that with meters on the bottom. And that way, they'll both cancel away. And this process guides you through the idea that we end up just multiplying here. 51 times 100 is 5,100, and the only unit remaining is centimeters. And that is the length in centimeters, 5,100 C. In question number 5, here we're just being asked about converting between radians and degrees. And the conversion you need to know is that pi radians is the same as 180 degrees. That means that if I have something being given to me in radians, by the way, the word radians is on the top right now, we can multiply that by 180 degrees on the top and pi radians on the bottom. Because those two things are the same thing, they're equal to each other. Putting one on the top and the other on the bottom is equal to the number 1. And when you multiply by 1, nothing happens. For the record, we could have multiplied by pi radians over 180 degrees, because that's also the number 1, but we're choosing to put the radians on the bottom to counterbalance the fact that we have radians on the top. And when you do that, they both cancel away. In addition, you have pi on the top and pi on the bottom, so those cancel away. And now we have a certain number of degrees, and that number is equal to 16 times 180, all divided by 15. Now on the calculator, that comes out to 192, and that's our answer to number 5. Going over to question number 6 now. Here, we're being given a nice simple equation, and we're being asked to plug in x equals 8. So y equals 5 times 8 plus 10. 5 times 8 is 40, plus 10 gives you 50, and that's your answer to number 6. Now going over to question number 7. This is particularly challenging because the grand majority of the time, when you have a graph involving time and distance, which here is in miles, in most situations, the x-axis would be the time and the y-axis would be the distance. But what's happening here is the total opposite. because x is the number of miles and y is the number of minutes. And I'm assuming that because I know that x is the opposite. So if x is the miles, y has to be the minutes. So now in the graph on the left, the slope here would be the change in y over the change in x, which is the change in the distance, which is miles, over the change in the time, which is minutes. And you do hear that more often, miles per minute, miles per hour. That's more common. But in the graph on the right, if we're dealing with the slope there, well, that's the change in y over change in x, because that's what slope always is. But here, that's the change in the number of minutes per the change in the number of miles. And so it's just very much more uncommon. And so you want to be paying attention to that distinction here. But Juan is riding 5.7 minutes for every 1 mile. So 5.7 minutes for every 1 mile. And so that's the slope in this sense. So if we're doing y equals mx plus b, we know that the m is now 5.7. So we have like y equals 5.7x. But we're also not being told that but also keep in mind that we're not being told a starting number of minutes. So this didn't start at 2 minutes or anything like that, which would have the graph looking like this. Instead, we're starting at, of course, 0 minutes. So it's a nice graph, even though the x and y axes are in kind of a backwards place. But the equation that looks like ours is answer choice D here.
Join today to take your SAT prep to the next level. Members get access to over 1,000 solution videos answering the questions in College Board's Question Bank and concept-based practice questions with videos to solidify your SAT skills. Thanks for watching. Grateful.
Now going to question number 8 here. Here, this person is buying 9 bins that each have this price. So X, let's just say, is the price of 1 bin. So the amount of money he would have to pay would be 9 times the price of 1 bin. But there's a coupon which is taking $63 off of what he has to pay. All of this is resulting in a final charge of $27. So now that we've set it up, we can just start solving the equation. Add 63 to both sides, and you'll get 90 on the right, so 9x equals 90. Now we can divide by 9, and we'll get x equals 10 for number 8. Now going to question number 9, here we have an absolute value equation, and here you basically have to have memorized that in a situation like this, you'll have a positive and a negative scenario. In other words, one where you just leave the equation alone and take away the absolute value symbols. And then you'll have another where you do the same thing, but you apply a minus sign on the other side. So for us, we basically have to write x minus 5 is 10 and x minus 5 is negative 10 and start solving them. Add 5 to both sides here, add 5 to both sides here, and our answers are 15 and negative 5. The question is asking for one possible solution, so you can have either of these as your answer. Now going to question number 10. Here, we're just testing our ability to write an equation based off of a verbal description. So 3 more than 8 times a number x is equal to 83. Now we're just looking to find out which of these answers matches what we had, and D does as long as you reverse the order of the two things that are being added. So 8x plus 3 equals 83, and that's totally equivalent to what we had. So the answer here is D. So for question 11, there are 2 ways you can look at this. You can look at it from a factoring perspective, which is to say, well, what's the GCF, the greatest common factor, for 9x squared and 5x? And the answer is x. Both terms have at least one x. So now if we divide them both by x, we'll get 9x for the first and 5 for the second. And you can see that that matches answer choice A there. But another way to do this is to just go ahead and distribute the answer choices. So x squared times 9x, x squared times 5, that would be 9x to the third plus 5x squared. 9x times x, 9x times 5, that would be 9x squared plus 45x. 5x times 9x, 5x times 1, that would be 45x squared plus 5x. And last but not least, x times 9x and x times 5, that's 9x squared plus 5x. So by two different methods, we found out that the answer is A. Now going to question number 12. In this situation, the parentheses are totally unnecessary. This set of parentheses here would be needed if there were a number around this plus sign or even just a sign. Then you would have something that you'd have to distribute throughout. But here we don't have that. It's just a regular plus sign. And similarly for the first set of parentheses, there's no real need for these parentheses. They're not really doing anything. They're not separating apart things that need to be multiplied or anything like that. So let's just rewrite all of this without the parentheses. And from there, what we'll need to do is combine some like terms. So 2x squared plus x squared is 3x squared. X plus 6x is 7x. And negative 9 plus 1 is negative 8. So we have 3x squared plus 7x minus 8, which is D. Now going to question 13. Here we can use the substitution method because we know that x is equal to 5y. So by that token, anytime we see an x, we can replace it with 5y. So 5y plus y is 18. Combining like terms, 5y and y, combine to give you 6y. 6y is 18. And now if we divide both sides by 6, we'll get y equals 3. Now out of the answers, there's only one that has a y value of 3. So we know our answer here has to be A. Now going to question 14. This is just a classic question about finding the equation of a line, because we have our 3 xy coordinates, and we can use that to find the equation of the line. The process you need to know is that you always start with slope, and from there, you decide between the slope-intercept formula. If you are given a y-intercept, then you'd use this, or the point-slope formula. If you're given a point that happens to not be a y-intercept, then you'll use this one. So let's try that. Here, we do have a y-intercept, because the y-intercept is always the moment when x equals 0. And by the way, the x-intercept is where y is 0. So we do have a y-intercept. That's our b, and that's the number 29. Now to find the slope, that's 32 minus 29 over 1 minus 0, which is 3 over 1, or just 3. So now if we put that all together into y equals mx plus b, we know that our m is 3, our b is 29, so y equals 3x plus 29, which is answer choice A here.
Join today to take your SAT prep to the next level. Members get access to over 1,000 solution videos answering the questions in College Board's Question Bank, and concept-based practice questions with videos to solidify your SAT skills. Thanks for watching. Grateful.
On question number 15, we can tell that this question is about the Pythagorean theorem for a couple of reasons. Number one, we have a right triangle with the sides labeled A, B, and C. So that sounds kind of like the Pythagorean. Number two, when you get an answer from the Pythagorean, it tends to have this appearance because you're squaring two things and then taking the square root. And the Pythagorean theorem is this: a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Now we're told that a is 4, b is 5, c is what we don't know, so we can put that in as 4 squared plus 5 squared equals c squared. Now, normally we would get the 16 and the 25 and add those up. But looking at the answer choices, we're being asked for a different format. So if we just take the square root here to turn the c squared into c, you have to do the same thing to both sides. And right now we have c equals the square root of 4 squared plus 5 squared, which is d here. Now going to question number 16. Here we're being asked for the area of a rectangle, which is length times width, or base times height. Same thing. Here, the length is 34 and the width is 29. So putting that into a calculator, we see that the area is 986 square centimeters. And that's our answer for number 16. Now going to question 17. Here we have the equation of the line already graphed for us. So we can get the slope as rise over run as you go from left to right. Now, when you get the slope as a slope formula, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Now, when you use the slope formula to get the slope using y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, what you're really doing is you're measuring the rise, because the difference between the two y values is how far you moved vertically, over the run, which is the difference between the two x values. But if you do have a graph, you want to remember that to get the slope, you should measure the rise over run as you go from left to right. And that'll help you stay on track as far as whether your slope is a positive or a negative one. Because in this example here, going from left to right, you could see that it was on its way down. So rise over run as you go from left to right. So here, let's do it from this point to this point. Our rise is -8 and our run is +8. So the slope, rise over run, is -8 over +8, which is just -1. Now the y-intercept, the b, well, that's this point right here. That's where it's hitting the y-axis, and that's -8. So putting that together as a y equals mx plus b, we have y is -1x minus 8. And that matches answer choice C here. Now going to question 18. Here we have an f of x statement, and let's just quickly review that for an f of x statement, if the value is going into the parentheses, for instance, f of 3, that really means that you're plugging in x as 3. But if the whole f of x is equal to some number, like f of x equals 3, well, that's like saying the y is 3, and y is the whole thing. So in this example, we set the whole equation equal to 3, and then you can solve. So for us here, we hear that p of n is equal to 56. So that's the entire thing equal to 56, which looks like this. And now we can divide by 7. And now the opposite of a third power is a third root. In other words, what number multiplied by itself 3 times gives us 8? And the answer to that is 2. So the answer here is A. Now going to question number 19. Here we're being asked for the x-intercept of that function. And the x-intercept is where y is 0. The y-intercept is where x is 0. So here, the x-intercept, that means y is 0. And this right here is our y, by the way. So that's 0 equals to 7x minus 84. If we add 84 to both sides, we'll have 84 is 7x. And now we can divide both sides by 7, and we'll get x is 12. So when y was 0, x is 12, and that's our x-intercept, and that's answer choice D here. Now going to question 20. Here we have an inequality word problem. So we have a truck that can tow. So what we're dealing with here is the combined weight of the trailer and the boxes. So let's write that down. Trailer, boxes, and all of that has to be no more than, so it can be less or it can be equal to, so no more than 4,600 pounds. So we're adding up the trailer and the boxes, and the trailer is 500, and we're being asked how many boxes. So if we think of this as a price times quantity statement, the price, the number that goes along with each item, is 120. and X can be the quantity, the number of boxes. Now we have a full equation and we can start solving. We can take away 500 from both sides. 120x is less than or equal to 4100. And now we can divide by 120 on both sides. And when you do that, x comes out to be less than or equal to 34.16 repeated. So what's the maximum number of boxes that can be towed? Well, it would have to be 34 because the number has to be less than 34.2. So the answer here is A. So going to question number 21 now. Here we have a wire with an entire length of 106. One part of it has a length X, and the other part has a length Y. Then we're hearing that X is 6 more than 4 times the value of Y. So instead of X, we can replace that with exactly that, 6 plus 4Y. And now we can utilize the idea that the whole wire has a length of 106. So the 6 plus 4Y and the Y, when they're combined, that gives us 106. Now we can start solving. 4y and y is really 5y, so 6 plus 5y is 106. Take away 6 from both sides. 5y is 100, and then divide both sides by 5, and y comes out to 20. So be careful here because the question is not asking us for y, it's asking us for x. But that's easy enough because x is 6 plus 4 times y, which is 20. So that's 6 plus 80, 86, which is answer choice D here. Now going to question number 22 here. We have 2 triangles and we're judging whether they're congruent. So let's just draw them as congruent. And let's draw them in the same order. So let's draw A, B, C, and D, E, F. And for both, we drew them in this order, A, B, C, D, E, F. So let's start labeling the measures they gave us. B and E are both 27. So 27 here, 27 here. C and F are both 41. So 41 there and 41 there. And what else could we have that would make the triangles congruent? Now, by the way, here are all the triangle congruence and similarity rules that you need. I got this little list from Khan Academy's GPT, which is called Tutor Me. It's definitely very useful. And we have 5 rules by which we can say that triangles are congruent, and we have 3 rules for triangle similarity. So we could have angle, side, angle if it turns out those sides are the same. So is there an answer that says that BC and EF are congruent? And that matches answer choice C. So that's going to end up being our answer. But we could have had, let's say, angle, angle, side, if we had AC and DF, or whatever other rules match up. But as long as it fits into one of the rules, here we had side, angle, side. That's enough for us to say that these triangles are congruent. So the answer here is C.
Join today to take your SAT prep to the next level. Members get access to over 1,000 solution videos answering the questions in College Board's Question Bank, and concept-based practice questions with videos to solidify your SAT skills. Thanks for watching. Grateful.